Before there was white.
Before anything had a form, a name, or any substance at all.
And even before the very first flicker of thought could arise from that immense silence.
There was only the ineffable. And it's from that very silence that the Secret Doctrine begins. Welcome, everyone. Today, we're not just opening a book, we're stepping through a portal. And that portal is Helena Blavatsky's monumental work, The Secret Doctrine. So, to help us navigate this incredible portal, we've got a map. First up, we're going to meet the controversial guardian of this knowledge herself, Helena Blavatsky. Then, we'll try our hand at deciphering the cosmic poem that lies at its very heart. After that, we'll trace the epic and mostly forgotten journey of humanity. And finally, we'll confront the doctrine's incredibly challenging and, well, profound legacy.
All right, so who was this person? Who was bold enough to claim she was passing down a doctrine that had been kept secret for thousands of years? Let's dive in and meet the enigmatic guardian of this knowledge.
Her name was Helena Petrovna Blavatsky, or HPB, as she's often known. And honestly, she was an absolute force of nature. I mean, she was born into Russian aristocracy, but completely rejected that life. Instead, she spent decades traveling the world, just immersing herself in all kinds of mystical traditions, everything from Tibetan Buddhism to Masonic orders. All of this journeying led to her co-founding the Theosophical Society in 1875, and then, in 1888, she published her life's work, her magnum opus. Now, the society she helped create, it wasn't just some mystical club. No, it had a truly revolutionary mission, especially for its time. First, it aimed to form a nucleus of a universal brotherhood of humanity. Second, it wanted to encourage the serious, comparative study of religion, philosophy, and science altogether. And third, and this was the really radical part, it was dedicated to investigating the unexplained laws of nature and the amazing powers that are latent in every single one of us. And you can really see the sheer ambition of her work right in its subtitle, The Synthesis of Science, Religion, and Philosophy. Think about it. In an age where science and religion were practically at war, just drifting further and further apart, Blavatsky comes along and proposes this third way, a kind of grand unification of all human knowledge, both ancient and modern. Okay, now we're getting to the core of it. We are about to enter the metaphysical heart of the doctrine itself, a cosmic poem that is said to have a profoundly mysterious origin. So, the Secret Doctrine is actually presented as a commentary on these ancient verses called the stanzas of Xian. And Blavatsky was very clear, these were not her creation. As she puts it, they were written in a sacred tongue called Senzar from a manuscript she says she was given access to in a hidden library in Tibet. I mean, we're talking about a source that is completely outside the bounds of known history or science. Okay, so the entire cosmology of the doctrine is built on three fundamental propositions. Let's start with the first one, because it's the most crucial. It's this: the existence of a single absolute principle. And this is key. It's not a god, it's not a creator, it's something that is totally beyond any kind of speculation. Blavatsky gives it a very specific name, beingness, which she describes as the potential to be, as opposed to being, which is something that's already manifest. You can think of it as the uncaused cause, the rootless root of, well, everything. So how do you even talk about this unknowable principle? Well, it's symbolized through two aspects. The first is absolute abstract space. You can imagine this as the container of all possibility, just pure potential. The second is absolute abstract motion, which represents unconditioned consciousness. And there's this beautiful name for it, the Great Breath. It's meant to represent that ceaseless rhythmic pulse of existence itself. All right, so from this one reality, the cosmos begins to unfold, and it does so in stages. First, the absolute stirs and becomes what's called the first logos. It's still an unmanifested precursor. Then, that differentiates into spirit-matter, which is the basic duality that underlies literally everything. From that, cosmic ideation, or Mahat, the universal mind, awakens. This is what holds the divine blueprint for all of creation. And finally, you have this dynamic energy called Fohat that comes in and acts as the creative force. It's what impresses that divine blueprint on a substance, bringing the whole structured universe into being. It's an incredible sequence. Look, I know this is a really profound and honestly a challenging cosmology. It's a lot to take in. But if this ancient way of seeing the universe resonates with you, if it's sparking something inside, then your support really does help this channel reach other seekers who are on a similar path. So, we've just witnessed the birth of the entire cosmos. Now, let's zoom in and turn to the birth of humanity.
And let me tell you, it's a story that is far, far older and a whole lot stranger than what we're commonly taught. See, the Secret Doctrine argues that human evolution isn't just a physical thing, it's primarily a spiritual one, and it unfolds through 7 massive stages that are called root races. Now, it is absolutely crucial to understand this has nothing to do with ethnicity as we think of it today, not at all. It's all about stages of consciousness, with each one developing on its own lost continent over vast, vast eons of time.
This table here kind of maps out that incredible journey, and you can see the progression. We supposedly began as the ethereal first race, almost formless, with hearing as our main faculty. The second race, on the continent of Hyperborea, developed touch, but then the huge leap happens with the third race on the Muria. This is where self-conscious mind, or manas, finally awakens. After them, the fourth race, the famous Atlanteans, mastered psychic powers and vision. And that brings us to us, the fifth race. Our defining feature? The flowering of the analytical intellect. And according to the doctrine, that's our current mission and our greatest challenge, to master this logical mind without completely losing our connection to those deeper ways of knowing that were developed in all those past ages.
So, when you see this vast, absolutely epic timeline laid out, it just begs the question, right? What's the point of all this? Why this unbelievably grand, complicated journey through all these different forms and senses and lost continents?
Well, the whole purpose is to completely reframe what we think it means to be human. The key takeaway is this: we are not a finished product, not even close. This whole epic story, it's a grand pilgrimage. Consciousness descends from pure spirit, down into the densest forms of matter, only to then begin that long, difficult, but ultimately beautiful journey, all the way back to its source. Now you can imagine, a work this radical, claiming such an extraordinary origin, it was bound to be challenged. Right? So let's turn to that now. Let's examine its very complex legacy and all the controversies that still surround it to this day.
So, the central debate really revolves around those stanzas of Dizion. On one side, you have the mystical claim from Blavatsky herself, that they were revealed to her from ancient sacred manuscripts that were being guarded by spiritual masters in Tibet. On the other side, you have the academic critique. This view argues that she might have actually constructed them herself, with researchers pointing to passages in known Tibetan Buddhist texts, like the Kanjor and Tanjor, as possible source material.
But you know, regardless of where you stand on that controversy, the book's impact is just undeniable. It basically laid the intellectual foundation for a huge chunk of modern Western esotericism. It was a groundbreaking attempt to bring Eastern spirituality and Western science together. It even had this surprising literary impact. It influenced writers like H.P. Lovecraft of all people. And maybe most importantly, it launched a direct assault on the scientific materialism of the time, arguing that spiritual evolution came first and physical evolution just followed along in its wake.
And Blavatsky herself, she made her intentions perfectly clear. In her eyes, this wasn't just another book of vague theories, not at all. She truly believed it was a definitive revelation, that it contained all the esoteric knowledge the world was ready to handle in the 19th century.
So maybe the best way to approach this monumental, difficult work isn't just with our intellect. As one final thought I want to leave you with suggests, The Secret Doctrine is not a book to be understood,
but to be remembered. Why? Because it speaks of something you already know but have forgotten.
So, from that silent, primordial void, all the way to the epic journey of the soul, we've traced a truly vast and secret map today. But now, I want to turn the question over to you. Which part of this ancient doctrine calls out the most to your own inner knowledge? Let us know down in the comments. Thanks so much for joining me on this exploration.